so much of this is still about Zach Wilson. We came into the season saying you got to figure out who Zach Wilson is. You got to get him up to speed. But inadvertently, or maybe kind of intentionally, or call it whatever, they became a very good football squad, the New York Jets, that is. Offensively, they have great skill position players. Defensively, with free agency in the draft, they put themselves on an elite level. This is now a top 5 defense. It's crazy to think about. Top 5 defense in the NFL. They didn't start the season that way. They evolved into a top 5 defense. And so the emphasis became not on, we got to develop our quarterback. It came on, we got to win. Because there are very few windows that open for you as a team where you can say, man, we got the defense to win a championship. We got an offensive skill position guys that can really accelerate and score. We need a quarterback who is viable in real time and not someone who's learning. And therefore, Zach had to go to the bench. But to me, it is still imperative that Zach Wilson get developed and turn into that player that they drafted from in the second overall pick last year. Now, that's easier said than done, because the way to do that is the way that the New York Giants did it with Eli back in 2004. You just kind of told the season, it sucks. You're going to lose 4 or 5 games in a row. He's going to learn on the job, but eventually he starts to figure it out. And, Dallas Cowboys last game of the season, he looked like the man. And he eventually exponentially grew every year and ultimately won a couple of championships. Like, that's the formula. The Jets don't have the ability to just let Zach do that because their team is too good. Right? Their team is ready to win a championship. Not that saying they are going to win a championship. I'm not putting them in the championship conversation. But when you got an elite defense and you got super skill position players, anything can happen. Right? So you have to go with Mike White. But Zach Wilson has to be on a path. The question now, and this is where I'm really going to judge Robert Saleh and Mike LaFleur and Brian Calabrese, the quarterback coach.
Ownership.
Ownership is, how do you redevelop Zach Wilson and get him back on a path to be a starting quarterback in the NFL and possibly the starting quarterback for the New York Jets? How do you do that in the next month and a half, so that by the end of the season, you're not going into next season saying Zach is a bust? I don't ever want to see Zach Wilson again, because if that starts taking over, then it gets really, really uncomfortable in that locker room. Very uncomfortable. It was a little bit uncomfortable on the sideline on Sunday. If that starts to be the situation in the locker room, it's going to be bad business for the New York Jets. So they got to figure this out with Zach Wilson, even though Mike White is the guy right now.
Okay. Here's how I see it. Now, I do think as we process this, we're a little. Listen, it's not our job to necessarily, work in the emotional state of these players that we dissect, but there's a human element here, especially when you're 23 years of age.
That's it, BT.
Yes, that I think it's callous not to incorporate here. So I get it. I'm sure his ego is dented. I'm sure he is really down. I'm sure that he's thinking all sorts of crazy stuff. And it can't be easy. And just because he's got a couple of bucks in his pocket, and I'm sure he's he's not longing for dates.
Born with a couple bucks in his pocket.
No, that too, right? and he's a good-looking kid, and he's got a lot of things going for him. Doesn't mean that he's not having a rough time here, right? So I'm certainly not here to kick him down while he is down further. But right now, he doesn't matter. Right now, Zach Wilson is irrelevant on the radar of New York sports. He didn't even dress this past week. And the bottom line for me is this. I know what he said. And Robert Saleh said, it's, and I paraphrase, but I'm not gonna lose the genesis of the meat of the quote. Something along the lines of, hey, it's our goal to get Zach back in there. All right, that's fine. But the only way Zach Wilson plays again is if, number one, you have Mike White play poorly this week against the Vikings, and then number two, play poorly up in Buffalo. Like, this isn't, let's stuff him back in there and hope that he fixed a couple of things. Because if they do that, and what's broken with him ain't fixable in a week.
No.
I mean, it's a laboratory session that's requiring minute detail and a real deep dive into stuff that he doesn't have. Yeah. Okay, so I say it like a mental aspect, a physical overhaul. And you're not doing that in a week. And I would tell you this, it would, if they throw him in there and he bombs, then everybody's job becomes in peril.
But that's my point. I'm not saying you're working Zach Wilson back into the starting lineup, but I'm saying you have to figure out a way to get Zach Wilson competent enough to be the starting quarterback of the New York Jets. And that's hard to do. We talked about this yesterday because think about this. I mean, just logically think about it. Mike LaFleur is game planning for whoever the next opponent is, right? Robert Saleh is a defensive coach. Brian Calabresi's 34 years old. It's his second year with the Jets as the quarterback coach. He's still trying to develop Mike White, right? No. Mike White is only in his, sixth game that he'll be starting?
He's been number 5. He's played
fifth
4.
game. So this will be his 5th game that he's starting in his career. Mm-hmm. I know he's been around since 2018, but this is his 5th game. So how are you getting Zach Wilson back up to speed to where Robert Saleh can justify saying it's our intention to play him? So I'm asking that question while at the same time saying you need to have an answer to that question.
No, it's not our job to have the answer. It's their job.
Exactly. And so
it's our job to criticize them if they don't have the answer or give them credit if they do.
I haven't heard it asked yet.
Yeah.
And I know there's been a couple of media sessions with Robert Saleh, and I know there's so much excitement because Mike White threw for 312 yards or whatever it was and had 3 touchdowns, and he looked really good, and the defense dominated the Chicago Bears, a team they were supposed to dominate, by the way.
Yep.
They did what they were supposed to do. But the Zach Wilson conversation can't just end because you put him on the bench. There is a process. There is a necessary reset and redevelopment of him that has to take place. He can't just be put on the shelf and just go sit over there and chill and
But that's where he's going to be if Mike White plays well. Let me tell you something.
But he still has to be developed. That's my point.
I agree with that. I do. That's a given. No, you don't just say go to your room.
Yes, that's what I'm saying.
In a month and a half.
How do you do that to a guy you drafted number 2?
But how do you do that to 51 other guys who are busting their ass and have a chance to do something special this year? You don't. I get it. It's complex, and that's why I gave the Jets a lot of credit yesterday on the show where, when you so publicly acknowledge, at least now, a colossal swing and miss and development, maybe more specifically of the second overall pick in the NFL draft, nobody in the franchise is looking good at that point. Now, you look good with the record, you look good with the other moves you've made, but that is the ultimate judgment of the New York Jets and every team. And right now, just like the Niners, I mean, what do you do with Trey Lance? What do the Bears do with Fields? What do what did the Browns do with Baker? What did the Jets do with Darnold? What do the Bills do with Josh Allen? That's the way it goes. What have the Dolphins done with the reboot with Tua? A lot well.
That was a great story about Tua.
That was good.
Talking about Mike McDaniel just believing in him.
Well, you're talking about the 700 plays?
Yeah.
For those who I don't want to get off track here, but for those who missed it, Tua basically after last year said out loud, he's like, do I stink?
Yeah.
And he said that to his coach.
Myself. Yeah.
I don't believe in myself. Do I stink? Am I good enough? And his coach he got 700 plays and spliced them together, sat down and watched them with him and said, this is why you're going to be awesome.
Right.
That's great.
And Tua is sometimes it just takes someone believing in you. That's great for
Now,
Tua.
do you think that our boss, if he tried to find 700 good moments of this show, I mean, we'd be hearing crickets. There would be no conversation. He's still waiting.
It's Hoff's pop-ins. Hey, Hoff was great.
If we're hanging our hat on that, we're jobless. All right, 10-11 on the fan. Tiki and Tierney here inside of our Town Fair Tire studio. Our friends at Town Fair remind you that you always get the guarantee lowest price on name brand tires from Connecticut to Maine. Nobody beats Town Fair Tire. Nobody. If I sound a little jacked up today, it's because I'm not feeling well. I know nobody cares, but I figured I would be fully transparent with that. Battle through it. It's all good. That's what we do. So listen, I don't care about press conferences. Sometimes they matter. Like the day that you get hired as the head coach, Adam Gase, we knew, not good.
Yep.
And with others, we knew not good or good. When Robert Saleh, specific to this situation, it's not about what he says, it's about what he does. Because you have to straddle the fence of protecting and insulating a young, impressionable, damaged young man right now, at least in the athletic sense. But you got to play to the rest of the room. So I don't care what he said. I know a lot of people took it the wrong way. Oh, it's a week-to-week thing.
Yeah.
Please understand this, Jet fans and football people. If Mike White plays well, Zach ain't playing, period.
Yeah, I mean,
there's nothing else to translate
there. We have Robert Saleh saying this, so you can determine his tone and his intention by what he's trying to say. I think he's protecting his locker room still and a lot of what he's saying, but I also think he's trying to prepare Mike White to be that guy and to earn it every single week. Here's Coach Saleh on the Zach Wilson, Mike White dynamic?
We're going to go week to week. There's things that we'd love to see Zach accomplish over the course of, we'll call it a reset, but this is Mike White's opportunity. That doesn't change. So Mike's got an opportunity to go stack another great day up this week, and when we feel like Zach is ready to roll, he's going to roll.
So he's leaving the door open for Zach Wilson.
Which I think is smart.
Which is smart.
You say that.
But you still got to get Zach Wilson right.
Well, what's the follow-up there? Hey, Coach, I get that. What are you doing to ensure
and that hasn't been
that
asked.
He gets on that path?
That hasn't been asked.
To my knowledge, I'm not sure. Has it been asked? Maybe we haven't gotten the answer.
Yeah, that's right. We didn't hear it in the press conference. Maybe someone asked,
whatever. Listen, that's a tough spot for Salvo.
Oh, of course it is. This is why you earn your wares as a coach. He's managing it the right way currently because he did the right thing. As much as that sucks to hear from a Zach Wilson standpoint, he did the right thing and benched the kid and went with Mike White. He did the perfect thing there, but he's still got to manage it, right? He's still keeping it open for Zach Wilson so Zach doesn't go into a tank and say, all right, this season's over for me. I'm out. I'm just going to go do what I do on the side, right? He's got to stay engaged. And the plan to get Zach Wilson back up to playing speed and playing at an elite level, it has to be asked. And we need to find an answer to that because he has to get there. Zach has to get there. You can't just toll your get rid of your number 2 pick from a year ago and say, sorry, Mike White's our guy. Because we don't know if Mike White's going to be the guy.
We don't know, but we're all prepared to watch for a couple of weeks and find out if he can add to the resume because the guy's played 4 games. 2 have been awesome. 1 he was hurt, 1 he got hurt. So, with really nothing around him, that's the other part that excites me. Like this Jets team, not just the defense, but the offense is significantly better than the one Mike White trotted out with a year ago. So, eyes wide open. I know where you drafted Zach, but I've also seen Mike White play a couple of games that, let's face it, have been unbelievable. That's who I'm rolling with. There's nothing else. That's it. Zach, you can study film, you can do the workouts, you can handle your footwork, you can do what you have to do to get back in the good graces. But right now, as I said yesterday, it's Mike White's team.